Good morning, and thank you for joining me live to discuss executive function coaching at Eaton Arrowsmith Academy online. To those of you unable to make it today, we appreciate you taking the time to watch the recordings at home. Today's info session is geared towards providing you with an in-depth look at our new executive function coaching program started in October 2024. We've been thrilled with the positive response from our community, as well as the progress of our clients throughout the academic year, 1/3 of which has stayed with us for the entire 9-month program. Our program is aimed at providing our clients with an opportunity to explore a new range of possibilities when it comes to developing and applying their executive function skills in the real world. In terms of executive functioning skills, we all have different areas of strength and weakness for which we need to compensate. For example, each and every person joining this info session had to successfully use a combination of executive functioning skills, likely a different combination depending on your strengths and weaknesses, to make it here today. Bonus points for those of you on time. My name is Raphael Croisetière, you can call me Raph, and I am the head executive function coach working alongside our other coaches, Pranav and Jill. I've had the pleasure of working with the Eaton Arrowsmith organization for the past 15 years in various roles, spending the last 5 years in the online sector. I've continued to be impressed with how seamless the online model has been in terms of both delivering the Arrowsmith program, as well as our growing executive function coaching program. As a whole, we've been increasingly familiar and comfortable with online platforms since COVID, opening up a realm of opportunities for connection. Let's get started by diving into some of the similarities and differences between executive function coaching and the Arrowsmith 4 hours a week program, both offered at Eaton Arrowsmith Academy online. It's important to mention that when it comes to these two programs, there's not necessarily an order. One doesn't need to be completed before the other. In fact, we have some clients participating in both programs simultaneously. Starting on the right-hand side, looking at the Arrowsmith program, one of the main things that we're looking for here is avoiding using any kind of compensatory strategies. We want to isolate and target specific brain regions, and when we compensate, we use some of our stronger brain regions to help the weaker ones. Pre and post Arrowsmith assessments are there to make sure that you are working on the right exercises as well as tracking your progress. Given the sustained engagement and focus that's necessary for these exercises, we are looking for students that are 6 years and older, although we have had some younger ones be successful, of course. It's a 4-hour-a-week program and highly data-driven. Over on the left-hand side, looking at executive function coaching, we operate in the zone of proximal development. This is one where challenging tasks become achievable with support. This stems from Vygotsky's work, who emphasized that learning occurs most effectively in this zone. It's an equalizing relationship. Coaches do not represent a figure of authority. We are there in a supporting role to ask questions, being a sounding board, and having our clients explore their own perspectives. We're the biggest cheerleaders and, of course, in a judgment-free zone. Focused on planning for the future in that we're breaking down the steps needed to achieve the client's future goals. Oftentimes, our clients are having an idea of where they want to go in life. The trouble comes becoming overwhelmed when it's time to plan, prioritize, and take the first few steps towards reaching that goal. Age-wise, we are looking at around 11 years old and above. There are some metacognitive skills that are necessary to develop, and before 11 years old, you typically haven't had the chance to mature, and so we want to wait until a little bit older. We are outcome-driven, whether aiming to successfully complete an interview, learning how to do laundry, create a budget. Our goal is to create a sense of exigence in reaching these goals. To differentiate the two programs, I like to use the analogy of linking obtaining a learning permit to Arrowsmith, where you need to pass the written exam, you need to pass your driving test with an instructor and this instructor's support and guidance, versus the process of practicing the skills that you've learned to become a bit of a better driver each day, which is more where executive function coaching is. Just because you pass your driving exam doesn't mean that you've automatically become a good driver. That comes with practice on the road. Finishing with the center, we have items that are combined in both of the programs. Both Arrowsmith and executive function coaching are very tailored to the individual. We're going to meet you where you're at, and we're going to be hearing where you want to be. Goal-oriented, of course, we are developing executive function skills in both of these different programs, looking to improve the quality of life and, above all, limit unnecessary suffering. Moving on to brain and executive functioning. As you know, the brain is our thing at Eaton Arrowsmith Academy online, and there are 3 main areas of importance as it relates to executive functioning. We have the prefrontal cortex, the hippocampus, and the amygdala. Starting with the prefrontal cortex, this is a highly developed part of the frontal lobe involved in many higher order cognitive processes such as decision making, reasoning, logic, personality expression, social understanding, and of course, executive functions. It is one of the last places in the brain to mature. It is very important in processing moment to moment output from our surroundings and comparing that input to past experiences and then reacting to them in an appropriate way. It is where we manifest our insight, foresight, and planning capabilities into the actions that define who we are. When faced with a problem or a novel situation, we turn to our prefrontal cortex first and foremost, which then consults with our hippocampus. The hippocampus is the part of the brain responsible for memory and learning, also part of the limbic system, which deals with emotion. The hippocampus converts short-term memories into long-term memory by organizing, storing, and retrieving memories within your brain. It has a role within spatial memory, which is the memory about the environment, as well as verbal memory, remembering what words to say. The hippocampus and the amygdala work together to connect memories to emotions, which generate an emotional response. For example, imagine you see a puppy for the first time. The dog is super excited to see you, wagging its tail, licks your hand. Well, your hippocampus and your amygdala are working together in that moment to store that memory in your brain so that the next time you see a puppy, you remember the past experiences and feel happy to see the animal. Keep in mind that the same is true for negative experiences, however. What if the dog was not friendly? The railroad metaphor can be used to help conceptualize the roles of both prefrontal cortex and the hippocampus, in that the hippocampus is responsible for laying down new tracks, while the prefrontal cortex is responsible for the flexibility of switching between these tracks. Lastly, taking a look at the amygdala, this is our processing center for emotions, your fight or flight response to keep you safe in the face of perceived danger. Also known as the gatekeeper to the hippocampus, it links your emotions to many other brain abilities, especially memory and learning. You may be familiar with the term amygdala hijack, where you become so overwhelmed that you're unable to reason and you engage with your fight or flight response to keep you safe within that moment. Trauma also has an impact on how well the amygdala and hippocampus can function, sometimes resulting in fragmented or even impaired memory storage. This speaks to why some people who have experienced a traumatic event don't exactly remember what happened during these times, or can have trouble piecing it together. To put simply, we are what we repeatedly do, and our task at executive function coaching is to identify some of the potential triggers that lead clients down pathways that may result in negative behaviors and provide tools, strategies, and insight on how to shift towards a different pathway. While at first it will be difficult to change our patterns and routines, the more we use this pathway, it will turn from a gravel road to a freshly paved highway. Next up, we've got executive functions. Executive functions are the skills that guide our behavior as we move towards achieving a goal or a task. As mentioned previously, you've all used a combination of these skills in order to attend today's info session. A big question remains, why are executive functioning skills so important? Well, they're really important in effective strategy use, efficient performance, academic success, focused effort, developing confidence in one's own competence, a positive academic self-concept, these types of things. Depending on the client and their needs, we may start working on different areas of executive functioning. We'll start with our pre-executive skills. Those deal with metacognition, so the ability to take a bird's eye view, evaluating your own participation. What am I doing? How am I doing it? What needs to be done differently? Really creating the why. The next one here, you have goal setting. So goal setting deals with what you want to achieve. This enables people to define the changes they want to see or the things they want to achieve in their lives. Without strong goal setting skills and strategies, the other executive functions can struggle to manifest because there aren't appropriate goals to drive forwards. In other words, if you don't know where you're going, you're likely not going to get there. We specifically focus on SMART goals, which are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Sure, I want a new red Ferrari in the driveway, but how am I going to get there? Moving on to the other executive functions, I'm going to highlight some of the main ones that we see our clients having trouble with or needing guidance with. We start with inhibitory controls. So there's different types of inhibitory controls. You could have your cognitive, which is more staying on task, staying focused. Behavioral, which deals with resisting urges and impulses. Emotional, so regulating your emotions, staying cool, calm, collected. Motor, so dealing with more your ability to stay seated and attend lecture, even if you're quite bored. Easier said than done with these. It's not always easy to control. Working memory is another big one. And so working memory deals with holding information while we are engaging in complex tasks. The memory is working, we're doing, and we're working with this information. The difference between short-term memory and working memory, for example, could be shown with a simple exercise. Let's say I gave you a list of words to remember. Let's say tiger, lion, zebra, and hippo. Me just asking you to repeat these, the same order that you heard them, would just be your short-term memory. Now, if you try to repeat these, but now put them in alphabetical order, that's when your working memory is going to step in, because you're actually working with the information that you have in your memory. Cognitive flexibility, not ashamed to say it, my most challenging one. It is the ability to change what you're thinking about, how you're thinking about it, and what you want to think about it. Being flexible depending on the changing demands of the environment and situation. Having trouble with this, you can present as being more rigid, perhaps some repetitive behaviors are coming out, perfectionism, frustration, things of that nature. Next up, time management, super popular, this one. Time is a constant. We don't have control over time. We aim to try and manage ourselves relative to time. There's two elements here. One of them is the element of time awareness, which is how much time we think is going by, and time estimation, how much time we think we need to successfully complete a task. Those that have ADHD and some of our clients, and often a very popular struggle here is the time blindness aspect, where time just seems to be flying by, and next thing you know, it's already been 5 hours gone. Planning and prioritizing, so you have the planning portion deals more with deciding on a goal and a task and arranging it in advance. Prioritizing deals with the planning of tasks within a limited time frame. So let's say a day, a week, a month, or a semester. We aim to break down goals into manageable pieces that can be planned within a time frame. Something that can be very helpful with that is an Eisenhower matrix, if you've heard of it. Lastly, here we've got organizations. There's two types of organization here. You've got your environmental. This deals with your items, papers, computer files, your desks, your room, things like that. And then informational, which is more your thoughts, plans, feelings. Organization helps with creating efficiency in the accessing of things and information that support us in reaching our goals. Maintaining these systems is just as vital. So getting organized is one thing, staying organized is another thing. So now that we've got a better understanding of executive functions, let's take a closer look at what happens when our executive functions fail. If possible, try to catch which executive functions are lacking here. Hint, it could be a combination. All right, first things first, let's take a moment to acknowledge the fact that we've all been there at some point. We know how these people feel. Looking closer at the top left, overwhelmed with work, everything keeps piling up, you're starting to get anxious, amygdala might be starting to go into hijack a little bit, you're feeling trapped, we're staying up late, losing sleep, not eating well, the list goes on. On the top right, this is more of a trouble with organization, so forgetting where things have been placed, leading to often being late or unprepared for schoolwork, missing assignments, incomplete homework, projects, things like that. Bottom left, so time management more at play here. The time management skills letting you down a little bit, either forgetting the time for the meeting or overestimating how much time you had to make sure that you got there on time. Bottom right, troubles with inhibition control. Amazon packages coming at your door every couple of days or every day. Couldn't hold back on the urge of making an impulse buy or going on a shopping spree. These are the types of things that might happen when we see our executive functions fail. Next up, we'll have a look at how executive functions are working and are interconnected in our everyday lives. Executive functions interconnected. Let's take a look at a case study with the goal of homework completion. This deals with how executive functions work together in helping us to reach our goals, or how challenges in some of these areas may increase the level of difficulty to complete the task. Let's start with your in-class. Working memory is going to be one of the main things that you're going to be using here. You've got a teacher or instructors giving you the homework for the day. So first thing, all right, I got to get that information. Again, working memory. I got to work with it. I'm going to put it in my agenda. I'm going to write it down, what I need to do, how I need to do it, by when. either putting it in my phone, writing a reminder, whatever I need to do to make sure that it gets done. I've got all the information I need. Fast forward to, okay, home from school, time to start your homework. Next thing you know, maybe a little bit of inhibitory control. You're getting distracted. Your focus isn't really on your work. Nintendo Switch is all right next to you. And next thing we're all human. It happens. Snag the Nintendo Switch, and 2 hours pass by. A little bit of time blindness coming in here. Next thing you know, you need to start relying on time management, both the awareness. So how much time you got left? Let's say I've got about 2 hours before I need to go to bed. Estimating, I got maybe about 1 hour left of homework to do. Looking at that, I should be good, should be able to fit it in. Some extra tools to help here. Again, the Eisenhower matrix, very, very helpful with time management, as well as the Pomodoro method. And so I've switched out of my Nintendo Switch. I'm now focusing on making sure that I'm doing my 1 hour of homework and that I'm able to fit it in that time frame before I need to go to bed. I'm going to be self-monitoring, so reflecting is what I'm doing actually getting me closer to my goal of homework completion, as well as self-regulating. Do I need to adjust my strategy or my behavior to make sure that I can meet this deadline and not have to stay up to really late at night to make sure it gets done? Moving on to the role of the executive function coach. Keeping in mind that a coach is a neutral figure that does not have any authority over the client. The main task is holding up a mirror to the client, working as a sounding board. It is client focused. We're looking at what it is that our client is looking to accomplish. It's not always easy. This may or may not shock you, but not all teenagers or young adults are thrilled at the opportunity to discuss themselves, their goals, anxieties, dreams, and stresses. This is why the initial assessment is such a crucial part of the process. I'll discuss what this is in a few slides. We're getting an idea of what their current system is. Everybody's got a system that they use to get things done. It might not be the best system and it might need to be adapted or tweaked a little bit, but everyone's got something they're working with, that's for sure. We use tools like a SWOT analysis and a short and long-term goal just to get some insight in terms of where it is that we're potentially wanting to go. We also look at the hierarchy of needs from Maslow, just kind of a starting point to make sure that we're hitting everything. On to step 2. So we're identifying the main executive function challenges. Now that we've got to know each other a little bit more, we've got some trust that's developing. We've got a SMART goal that we're looking to put together. We're incorporating the areas of strength. So it's not a deficit-based approach. We are looking to highlight the strengths that we have. And this is where the tracking, the adjusting, and the adapting is happening here, just to make sure that the goal that we have and everything that we've got in place is getting us actually closer to the result that we would like. On to step 3. So the strategy's become perfected. So everything that we've got, we've self-monitored. We've on the way that we want to. We're on the right direction. We're heading towards the goal that we've set for ourselves in step 2. We're self-monitoring. We are gradually transferring ownership. All right, now we've got everything sorted. The routine, everything is set. Now it's time for the client. Off we go. Moving on to the next priority, or perhaps that's the end. Our goal is to work until the individual is ready to go. Essentially, we're kind of working ourselves out of a job. Next up, why choose Eaton Arrowsmith Academy online for executive function coaching? All coaches are also Arrowsmith trained, familiar with executive functioning, and are working with a wide range of clients with differing abilities in their day-to-day. They're able to identify different cognitive weaknesses to help our clients, well-versed with motivation, goal setting, and tracking, and above all, patient and understanding. We are part of a large neurodivergent community here at Eaton Arrowsmith Academy Online, with current and alumni families who are familiar with our staff. Our vision, mission, values, and trust has been established. If you are an alumni or current student, we can use your Arrowsmith assessment as a tool to help to create, maintain, and adapt strategies for success. We have access to lots of resources through the Arrowsmith program. Looking at our ASD ADHD population, executive functioning skills are impacted in both of these cases, and we're seeing a large influx of this population looking to benefit from executive function coaching. Instructors are familiar with this population, what works, what doesn't work to help keep them motivated. Honestly, it's the little things. You can't beat experience when it comes to working with clients that have a variety of needs, not being thrown off by certain behaviors, and able to see the bigger picture. You can just tell when someone's got it. All right, switching gears here, looking at the value added. So this is where do we see the greatest need with our clients? Overall, most common for sure, scheduling and calendars, keeping ourselves organized, keeping in mind there's also environmental and informational. You have limiting impulse control, trying to make sure that we are staying on task, procrastination, dealing with strategies to make sure that we can limit the negative impact it has on reaching our goals, as well as time blindness. You have the connection piece up next. This is built on trust. It is empathy-based, client-driven. We are only speaking about topics that the client would like to. We are exploring what their goals are and where they would like to be. Confidence building, a lot of it revolves around discussing topics that might not be comfortable with. They might be a little bit more vulnerable, and that helps just to build a stronger connection and a greater bond. Perspective taking, fostering a growth mindset, trying to be a little bit more resilient, solution oriented, working on cognitive flexibility. And so having a look at solving problems from different ways, the way that we're doing it right now might just not be the best way to do it. And then the gradual progression. So we've got a step-by-step approach. Short-term goals, trying to really build up our confidence and our capacities little bit by bit. This happens with scaffolding, trying to reduce anxiety. When you start to get anxious, it's because you're trying to go from 0 to 100, and you're just not really sure what the first step is that you need to take. And so kind of breaking it down and then managing the expectations is key. Now that we've looked at executive function coaching as well as executive functioning skills, let's have a look at our program overview and a little bit more about how this works. The first step would be a suitability meeting. And so if you are interested in potentially joining our program, we would have a meeting set up between myself and whomever the prospective client is, determining if we are the right fit. And so once the fit has been established, we would move on to availability. So we meet twice per week. We meet between Monday and Friday, and usually it is something like Monday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Thursday, just so that we can have some time between the two meetings to work on the things that we're discussing. Once we have availability all figured out, this is one of the most important parts. We match a coach with the client. And so making sure that the needs are both met. Some clients and some coaches have different needs, and we want to match those up to the best of our abilities. This is going to be key for the future success of the client. Once we've matched you with a coach, the first thing that we'll do, we'll set up an initial assessment. And so this isn't like the other meetings that you would have, your weekly meetings. This is the first one between the client and the coach, and it is 1 hour. The big thing here is getting to know each other, getting to know a little bit more about the client getting to know and get more comfortable with the coach, and then slowly start to kind of set up the framework for future sessions. Once things are going in full gear, you will have your weekly meetings set up. The weekly meetings have one 40-minute meeting, which is typically the earlier one within the week, followed by a 20-minute meeting. So in the 40-minute meeting, you are looking at your goals, you're discussing strategies, you're adapting strategies. In the shorter meeting, it's more of a catch-up, what's going well, what isn't going well, and how might we need to change what we're doing to adapt to our goal. Thank you so much, everybody, for taking the time to join us today discussing executive function coaching. If you're interested in learning more about whether executive function coaching is the right fit for you or your child, the next step is to get in touch and set up a suitability meeting with me. My email is just along the bottom there. Please feel free to reach out. Hope we're able to connect with you in the near future, and thanks again. Cheers.